everybody, and welcome to Olivia's Book Club, the podcast. I'm your host, Olivia Fierro, dedicated to adding to your already towering stack of books that you must read in the summer months, as we're mid-May already when we're talking here. So stay tuned, actually, to the end of the podcast as well for some more book talk with Margaret after this interview and some recommendations of what we're looking forward to. But now it is to double the trouble, double the fun, double the super success. Something Wilder is the new novel from Christina Lauren, the pen name for writing partners and besties, Christina Hobbs and Lauren Billings. So the ladies are joining us to talk about this powerhouse dynamic duo, 17 and counting New York Times bestsellers. So that's pretty remarkable. Congratulations. I don't know if you two ladies have a system of who likes to talk first or you know, if what your rhythm is, but I cannot wait to hear just about how this partnership came to be and what it's like to work with a friend and experience all of the ups and downs of a writing career together.
So I'm Christina, and so we met writing fan fiction in 2009. Lo was organizing a panel at San Diego Comic-Con about fan works, and I had a popular story at the time, so she invited me to participate. And we met in person and just really hit it off. And we came home and decided we were just going to write something together. And, you know, fanfic is super collaborative, so it just felt perfectly normal for us to decide to do that. And then after we did that, we decided to write a book because that felt like to us this logical next step, and it just went from there. And you're right, we're so lucky because writing is solitary and stressful, and we always have somebody there who is like on the same page as us, who is excited about the same things, worried about the same things. So it's amazing.
That is really cool. So Lauren, I hear her calling you Lo. Does everybody call you Lo?
Yes, unless you are my mother or I am in trouble.
Ms. Lauren. Okay, so Lo, how does before we get to, and obviously things are different now because I understand you were writing something Wilder in the midst of the pandemic, so everybody was remote. I very much enjoyed your acknowledgement section because I wanted to hear everything about how that has impacted the creative process as well. But generally speaking, outside of pandemic life, are you both in the same city when you're writing? Are you working in the same room? Is this structured? Is this crazy? Are there cocktails involved? Is there snacks? Who is the most regimented, and how much time are we really spending together?
So we don't actually live in the same city. We don't even live in the same state. I'm in Southern California, and Christina lives just outside of Salt Lake City, Utah. And we've always worked that way. So we always sort of laugh about how, I mean, not that there's a lot of laughing about the pandemic, but when it comes to talking about how people's work habits changed, it feels in a lot of ways like the world started working the way that we have always worked, which is that we've done a lot of video talk. We've done a lot of text messaging. Everything is online collaboration for the most part. The difference for us is that we are used to seeing each other pretty frequently. We started writing together before we knew each other very well, but the friendship really grew out of the collaboration. And so at this point, we put just as much time into the friendship as we do into the working relationship. So pre-pandemic, we were used to seeing each other every 4 to 6 weeks, and we would talk about, you know, whatever book we were writing, but we would also just hang out and be besties. And so the pandemic took a little bit of that away from us, but we're back to normal life in terms of seeing each other at least regularly. And so that's really nice.
Yay.
And yeah, it's been really good. And I would say in terms of just structure, I mean, we treat it like a day job. We work all day, and we are both really motivated and structured in our habits. So it makes it really easy because we have the same priorities.
So you're almost like as if somebody would be in a television writer's room, kind of breaking the story together and going through it kind of on a Zoom call or on an open call, and just kind of talking everything through and then sitting down and doing pages.
Absolutely. And we usually alternate chapters. So like I might do 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, so on, and she'll do evens. And we upload it into a shared document as we finish so that we can both see sort of how it is shaping up as we draft. And we try not to edit too much while we're drafting, because drafts are always messy. Anybody who's a writer knows that the idea is always shiny and perfect. The first execution is a hot mess. And then you get to refine it and polish it as you go through it. So we really do try and get that draft out of the way before we start polishing it. And that we do together.
And I find it fascinating that you bring a science background to your work, right? So tell me a little bit about what you each did beforehand and how it kind of plays into the way that you write or work together as a team.
So go ahead.
So I worked in a junior high counseling office, and I miss it sometimes. It was really fun to be with the kids. But it really doesn't have much to do with our current job.
Well, you were doing some YA before, right? So you're kind of getting into that psyche.
Yeah.
You understand the headspace of an angst-filled young teen.
Yeah. And like how kids
for
talk
autobiography.
Yeah. But the science stuff in particular has helped us. Lowe's background has helped us so many times. I don't think I realized how many books we've had that have sort of sciencey like protagonists and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are multiple ways that it has helped me with writing. One is that, as a scientist, you get really familiar with failure because, you are testing hypotheses all the time. And so you are failing a lot. And so I think when you go into the publishing world from a lot of other industries, it's hard. Rejection is hard. Once you publish, getting bad reviews is hard. And I think scientists are just a little bit more used to things not necessarily going the way you expect they're going to go. But also just from the discipline standpoint of the kinds of things I studied, it's been really helpful because it is fun to put women in STEM into our books. I mean, the Soulmate Equation she's a statistician and the hero is a geneticist. And that was a blast to write. I mean, we got to be really nerdy. So
making science so sexy.
Right?
Yes, that's doing good for the world. Absolutely. Christina, I know, so you're in Utah, and that's the setting that you thrust us into with this incredible environment. Obviously, people were itching to get out and get out and about, and you were really creating a space for us to have a big adventure.
Yeah. And when we first started writing this book, the thing that we knew was that, so it takes place in the like Red Rock Canyonlands area of southern Utah. And we'd had this idea for a while, but we weren't sure that this is exactly what we were going to write. But we both knew we did not want to write a book that took place in an office or any sort of kind of indoor thing, because we had, at that point in particular, California was still had locked down again. And so we were just like, we wanted something fun and outside and to just have a little adventure, even if it was only through our characters.
It wasn't going to start with, so she sees him pop up in the Zoom gallery grid.
No.
Oh my gosh, and her heart dropped.
Lily wouldn't even know what Zoom is.
Looking just as hot, even in that small little square. I am kicking myself because I listened to this on audio, and I received the book after I had just gone on a little trip, which was in Utah, out at a resort called Amangiri, and we did this big adventurous thing, the Via Ferrata, and it was basically the most outdoorsy thing I've ever done in my life. And this would have been the perfect scenario to be carrying the book like 400 feet above the canyon. I mean, I really blew it. So maybe you guys can do that.
That would have been great for Instagram. Yes.
Totally. I blew it for the gram completely. So let's dig into this book. It is so fun, and I really want to emphasize that this is the type of story and characters that appeal to people who would not consider themselves to be romance readers. I mean, I contemporary romances can play out in so many different ways, but this is also adventure and humor and excitement, and it just felt like I was in the middle of a big, gigantic movie.
That is exactly how we want readers to feel. I mean, I think this book is our love letter to those movies that we watched when we were younger, when very young, when we saw Romancing the Stone and Indiana Jones and National Treasure and Goonies and if anyone has seen The Lost City recently and you loved it, this book is absolutely for you. It is meant to embrace adventure, but also have this sort of the Christina Lauren romance that our readers look for. So it was super fun to write. It's unlike anything we've ever done, but I think readers who are used to our books will find a lot of familiarity here too.
Yeah, and you've got a really great protagonist, and she and her best friend are, dynamic, active, strong, independent, tough, funny women who respond in the best way. I mean, there's incredible one-liners here, and just her take charge persona as she's taking people out. So one of you, if you will, kind of lay out the plot for us, our premise for our story.
Okay, so Christina looks at me. So the story is about Lily Wilder, and yes, that is a nod to Joan Wilder from *Romancing the Stone*. And Lily Wilder met Leo years ago. At the beginning of the book, we see a little bit of them in the past, where they met when they were working together on Lily's family dude ranch. And we don't know exactly what happened in the intervening years, but we meet them in the present when Lily is taking tourists out on these fake treasure hunts out into the Canyonlands. And Leo is kind of a buttoned up office drone in Manhattan. And unbeknownst to him, Leo's friends who plan trips to guys' trips every year, the guy who planned it this year is taking him on one of Lily's adventure tours through the desert. And so these two former loves are thrust together in the middle of nowhere to go on this fake treasure hunt that goes horribly and hilariously wrong. And so in the process of them being reconnected, they also have to figure out whether they trust each other enough to go on what they think is an actual treasure hunt now. And so we have a cast of sort of unruly, funny guys. You mentioned Lily and Nicole, who are the two women that run this operation. And we really love these two characters, especially because they are two women out there, running this operation, taking groups of people out into this very hard terrain, and they are totally capable and totally just doing what they love to some extent. I mean, Lily would much rather own her family's land, which is a thing that we got to give them something to reach for, right? And so it was just a blast to write them. It's one of the most fun casts of characters we've ever created.
Yeah, a lot happens and things go sideways and the dudes are a handful, to say the least. And I love the concept of, even when they're getting introduced to this group and kind of getting their bearings and setting the dynamics for this adventure, that mode of sort of anybody who's ever worked in hospitality, the quick sum up of what each person's going to be like and who's going to be the biggest pain and who's going to be, the tolerable one, and who we just absolutely, all of those things. And it's like, okay, check. They're just reading people, and they've just got all of that, EQ that they've got to use. And it becomes very important, of course.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, they immediately clock them as like the noisy one, the cute one, the sweet potato,
the creep.
I liked that, the sweet potato too. It's like,
yeah,
that's a good one. So this is a very exciting story, and this young woman is really and Leo as well, but the young woman kind of defined in a way, or reacting to the shadow of a big image looming large over her, which is her father, who has passed away, Duke Wilder. So when you first came up with Duke, I mean, what were you kicking around about what this guy was really like? Larger than life, I guess.
Oh yeah, I mean, Duke sort of sees himself as, or other people see him as, sort of this like Jack Sparrow /, Indiana Jones type of Sam Elliott guy. And we actually went back and forth when we were writing it. He was like a much smaller part of the book at first. And then as we kind of went on, like, so many of Lily's decisions are kind of based on like what her dad would do and what he taught her, even though she does not want to go follow in her dad's footsteps, but she could not have done this without everything that he taught her growing up.
Yeah, and it's a lot of little treasures along the way of wondering whether there's treasure, but memories that she has of things that he was teaching her along the way in all of his eccentric style of parenting, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Is one of you particularly outdoorsy? Where did all of this like horse and camping knowledge come from?
Well, we do a lot of research. I wouldn't say either of us is particularly outdoorsy. I mean, we're not outdoorsy, but like, I don't think either of us is going to go do
we're
like
not rappelling down canyons.
Yes. I enjoy the outdoors, but I don't know that I'm going to go canyoneering. But so actually, you know, one of the things that we love to do, and Christina especially is amazing with doing research for the different areas where we base our books. And so she found a former canyoneering guide who takes groups out into this exact area, and he takes them on different trips. And so he created a path or a journey for us. He created a menu. He like told us all the different things they would have in their backpacks. He drew us maps. And so he was really helpful because, I mean, we can go to these areas, but it's one thing to go and stand at the ledge and look out at these beautiful slot canyons, but it's another thing to really have been in there and know how claustrophobic they feel, how sort of serpentine they are, all of that. And so he was really invaluable for us in learning about, you know, where this book is going to take place.
But also, Lo has gone to dude ranches, just like the one that, you know, Lily grew up on. And her daughter is a horse girl.
Oh.
And so she's actually the one that we dedicated the book to. And she was very helpful in coming up with the horse names.
Yeah, Christina had her name all the horses. It was so cute.
That is so nice. So speaking of dedication, what is the deal with BTS? I have to know absolutely everything about this.
So for people who don't know, BTS is a group. It's K-pop, but I discovered BTS in 2017. We were writing this book called Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating, and Josh is Korean American. So we had reached out to our readers in our Facebook group and said, hey, is there, you know, are any of you Korean or Korean American or married to a Korean and would be interested in helping us and answering some questions? And so many people volunteered and like just shared their lives and their family and stories with us. But one of them suggested I watch some videos to like understand how honorifics work in Korean culture. And I saw one BTS video and it was just over. And I just
spiraled down.
It was just a spiral from there. And I just fell in love with them and started going to concerts and everything. And then in 2019, one day, Lo said to me, which one is this? When one of them posted, and it was just, we just are like, our favorite thing to do is to go to concerts together. And like our ability to fangirl is like the best and worst parts of our personality. And so once she got into it with me, it was over.
Oh,
over.
That's a great foundation for friendship too, because you just like, there can't be any self-consciousness if you're fully enjoying a concert.
Well, and I mean, also Christina and I met in writing fan fiction, and fan fiction back in 2008 and 9, when we were writing, it was still sort of like the black sheep of the writing world. I mean, you didn't admit that you wrote fan fiction. You didn't admit that you were in these online communities. And so just built into our friendship from day one was this safety in loving exactly what you love and not judging anybody for it. And so, you know, we've been through so many different fandoms together, but I think, you know, it's never been like, nothing has been like it is with BTS. Like, we just love them so much and we have so much fun together. So it's been really wonderful to find this space.
Especially in a pandemic. Like, everybody needs something that just makes them stupid happy. Everybody does, no matter what it is. And that's what this is for us.
So where does the infatuation go? Does it continue to grow? Will it eventually maybe be replaced by somebody else? I shouldn't even say that out loud. Or you know, is there like a trip that's upcoming that will be sort of, you know, bringing us all to a culmination, or has that already happened?
I mean, when they had concerts in LA, they just had some concerts in Vegas and we were able to see them. But I mean, they're just a source of enjoyment. They aren't our entire world. And I think that that's where you learn like a healthy fan relationship is just like, this is something that you go to for joy in your free time. And when you like, you know, have space for it. So hopefully it continues to just be a bright spot for us. moving forward. And who knows how long they'll be doing their thing, but we're going to be their fans no matter what.
If more of us were hoarse from screaming at a concert, I think the world would be a much happier place, right?
Agreed.
Agreed.
I'll say my first concert was Wham, so I'm really dating myself. But I heard a Depeche Mode song the other day, and it took me back to a 7th grade concert I went to. And I remember, and I turned to my husband, he was looking at me, I was so crazy. I said, I remember when they were playing Save a Prayer, and I was just weeping like this, and I was frozen, and just the tears were just, there's so much, and just dripping off my face. It was the best day of my life up until that point, without question.
I love this story. I saw Depeche Mode when I was a freshman, and I remember Dave Gahan threw his shirt into the audience, and this sweaty shirt like slapped me in the face and was immediately ripped off and taken by somebody else. But like the days of early concerts as a young teen. My first concert was Aha, so I'm dating myself there too. But it was just like, they're just so fun. They're just pure joy.
Yeah, Duran, but all on and on, and oh my gosh. So yeah, that's a euphoric experience, and I find the watching live music to be just nothing compares. To flip this, you have a rabid fan base yourself, the two of you. So what is that experience like? And it seems to be such a neat, unique experience right now for writers like you, because you're able to have this contact through social media that, a successful bestseller wouldn't have had a generation before.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we on any given day can be like answering DMs or tweeting with readers who are in, Russia or France or, Poland or wherever. And like the people in our group, it's such like a wide variety of people. But then also like when everything shut down, we were still able to have book releases. We were still able to go on virtual tours, all of these things that would just like, even being an author now in 2022, as opposed to when our first book came out in 2013, is so different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the social media is completely changed everything. I mean, the constant feedback, right?
Yeah. And I mean, also TikTok has had a huge effect on books in the last year or two. That's been really amazing. But, it's been nice. Like last weekend, we were at the LA Times Festival of Books, and it had been, we did do an event in Tucson as well, which was wonderful. And just seeing readers, like seeing these people in 3D now is just wonderful. And I think, readers are so excited to get to go back to book events. We're so excited to be together. It's just like this sort of reunion. Even if it's strangers, you're just like, I'm so happy to see you,
You're here.
It's just people like getting together all because they love the same thing.
Yes.
And so even just watching them in line is so much fun.
Yeah, it's like, you're here, I'm here, we like this. That's a connection that is so special to share. Before we wrap up, let me bring it back to you both being readers, because I think of every writer, of course, as fundamentally someone who loves to read and loves to escape. So what do you remember being the first book or experience or time that kind of showed you the magic of what can happen that ultimately led to this career? So Christina, let's start with you.
I remember, so I came from a big military family, and so there wasn't a ton of money. So I lived for the library. And I always joke that like I felt like such a high roller because I could just walk in there. Like we didn't do the Scholastic Book Fair and stuff, but we could go into the library and I would be like, I can get 7 books, and just being so like excited about that. And I have such vivid memories of like reading every single Nancy Drew book and the like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And I feel like that's sort of one of the first books that made me realize that you really can disappear into another world, which I'm sure is like what Harry Potter was, for the next generation. So seeing people now read our books and have that same experience is just crazy.
Yeah. I read a lot. I mean, I was a very avid reader for a long time, but I remember feeling like the parts of the book that I was so excited to read, that we were given such a tiny bit of it. Like I wanted more kissing, and I wanted more hand holding and more of that like swoopy, feeling in your stomach. And I remember going into a used bookstore with my allowance, and I saw a copy of Danielle Steele's Palomino. And I was like, what is this? And so I bought it with my own money, and I was like, wait, there are whole books that are just the romance part, like mind blown. I just remember being blown away that you could spend an entire book reading about people falling in love. And then it was over for me. Then it was just like, I was writing fan fiction about my favorite soap operas, and I was like reading every romance I could get my hand on. And I just think some of us gravitate to that. And it was just a really wonderful thing to discover.
Oh, that is so cool. I'm so happy that you both shared that's awesome. And I know that that when that magic happens and you just, whoa, all of a sudden I get it. And it's just, the possibilities are endless. And I think everybody who really loves books just has a little secret dream to maybe be able to give that gift to somebody else in one way or another. So the book is Something Wilder. It is an absolute wild ride and a wonderful pleasure with kissing, of course. So otherwise we'd be saying money back. Come on. Christina and Lauren. Christina Lauren, another fabulous one. Thank you so much for spending some time talking with me on this podcast. Time for a moment with Margaret, checking in with Margaret after talking with the writing duo that is Christina Lauren. And those ladies, first of all, Something Wilder, I really enjoyed. Very cute. And I just really enjoyed them and their whole friendship and relationship and the BTS obsession and their just pursuit of joy and happiness, I think is admirable all the way around. They've kind of got life figured out.
I really enjoy their books. I have this one queued up, ready to go. I have it as audiobook and as a hard copy. So I'm thrilled to be able to switch back and forth because usually I don't get that opportunity. But loved Soulmate Equation, loved. And our friend Nicole Price, also a big fan of Christina Lauren. And I believe she already read or is about to read or is in the process of reading Something Wilder. So I hope she loves it as much as she likes the others.
It's absolutely, and they said so too. If you do like a throwback movie like Romancing the Stone, but it's current, it's that, It is just, it's, I think, broadly appealing, well beyond the regular romance or rom-com reader to it's a little thicker of a story and really, really enjoyable.
I'm so glad. And I'm excited to hear from them and how their writing process. I mean, as we've heard from others who are duos, it's a very interesting way to have a writing partner.
Completely.
Like how would you even write one book, let alone one book with another person? I would think they'd have to be sitting over my shoulder as I'm typing. It's like, no, Margaret, that sounds terrible. You know what I mean?
Change that word. Okay.
Yes. So my list today is about, if you've read these books, you'll like these books or similar. On the last podcast, I'd mentioned Love Hypothesis by Allie Hazelwood. I'd say if you liked that, you will love Soulmate Equation. I think the science behind it is a lot better and a lot more realistic in my eyes. And what's funny, I've not seen much Christina Lauren on Book Talk out there. So let's get them moving out there, So we love Lisa Jewell. Then She Was Gone.
Yes.
So just a reminder, Then She Was Gone. This girl who was kidnapped, held captive in someone's basement. And then it's the mom looking her whole life for her missing daughter, right? Mm-hmm. This is actually a book that I saw on Book Talk because one person I follow puts it in like every rap she does. It's like, this book can't be that good. Like, you gotta back it up.
It's the only book.
It's like one of 5 that she uses, and God bless her because she's got a lot of the other books she and I read the same stuff. So this one I'm finally was like, okay. So it's called Local Women Missing by Mary Kubica. Have you read this one?
I haven't, but it's like, I feel like I see it everywhere and it seems like I should have read it already.
Everywhere. So audiobooked it as one does. And it's a girl and her mother, a young girl, she's like 6, and her mom go missing. and the family's trying to figure out where they are. But you're also getting the perspective of the little girl who is being held captive.
Oh.
And then she gets out and reunited with the family. So you're getting a bounce back of current to 11 years prior, when I believe it was 11 years prior when she was kidnapped. And so you're getting a toggle. And so you're hearing the perspective of the little girl, of neighbors that were trying to help figure out where they've gone, where she had been when she returned. And then you're hearing from the mom from 11 years prior, where she went missing. So all's chugging along, and you think you know what's going on, and then you don't.
Oh, that's the best.
Oh, and then the ending, you're like, okay, I see where this is going. But then you don't. And then when it starts to really click, you're like, oh my God, it can't be this. No. Yeah. No, it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I really liked it. But it really reminded me of Lisa Jewell. So if you like that creepy, it's not as, I'm not going to say it's not as hard, as graphic. There are some very tough pieces, but not nearly as tough as Lisa Jewell. In my perspective, anyway.
Okay.
So loved that. And it was fairly quick. So I would suggest that one. This is for all my Bravo lovers out there. Do you know what I'm going to say? So I am not going to lie. I do absolutely love Stassi Schroeder from Vanderpump Rules.
She's coming out as a Stassi lover, and she does not care what you think about it. Good for you.
I don't care. Here's my thing: is cancel culture is huge. Like, let's talk Will Smith. Like, I get it. He was ousted.
I've canceled him.
Yes,
personally.
And you know what? But you saw him do something. He reacted in a moment. Does he deserve a chance to reconcile his life? Yes. Do I disagree with what he did? Absolutely. Right. Same with Johnny Depp. Remember, everybody canceled him. And now we're in a huge defamation case where everyone's like doing a full 180, right? Stassi wrote in her first book, Next Level Basic, about a lesson while she was on the show, a couple of things that she had done and said, just out of like, just not being aware of privilege and that whole idea, and saying things without thinking about what they really mean.
Yeah.
And she talked about being canceled then. And then 2020 happened. So this is a follow-up to her first book, Next Level Basic. This is Off With My Head, which, if you know anything about Stassi, she's obsessed with. The
cover is fantastic.
Oh, it's amazing. It's so, and it's perfectly her, because she loves Marie Antoinette, like just the time of the French Revolution, just like that whole aesthetic. So it's very appropriate. But she goes into depth about, she knows what she's done wrong, but she had this situation where she was thrown in to, like, you have to start apologizing, and she didn't realize what she was apologizing for. She wanted to make sure that she understood what was being asked of her, and she was kind of forced into a situation, and then dropped from even her like crisis PR people. They dropped her, and she's like, wait, like, this doesn't make any sense. And when you hear her perspective of what happened, you don't go, oh, I get it. Yeah, she's of no fault. She's even like, I am at fault, but I want you to recognize that what the tabloids were saying and what was the actuality are different, but still there was a great reason for me to be treated the way I was. There were some things that she didn't deserve. And she hired in secrecy, an NDA, somebody to help her be educated on why what happened was such a thing. And so she did this whole educational thing just for herself and had no intention of talking about it except until this book. And I still love her, and I appreciate that she did put it all, all out. And she was pregnant and she almost lost her house kind of thing. Like,
yeah, that must have been intense.
Struggling to make that. And
there's nothing worse than somebody who puts out a memoir and they're not really talking about the stuff you want to hear about. So that'll change the whole trajectory of every opportunity that she has now, and there has to be a room in the world for reflection and for growth. And so that's a good topic for, to be introduced to people who would be watching the shows and really thinking about, okay, what next? Because we all make mistakes and, we all move from a place of ignorance in a lot of spaces. So what do we do next?
Yeah. And I think about things like, we all have moments we're not proud of. And to be thrown, she welcomed public eye, but the thing is like, when you make a mistake, there's not a camera rolling at all times, or I'm not somebody that anybody cares about what I'm doing necessarily, but I'm given the grace to, grow and apologize and move on from it. Where she is in a position where no matter what she does, whether she apologizes or doesn't, she's crucified for it. Right. And it's, and you're just, she just had to come to a place where she was happy with how she reacted overall at some point and how she was going to teach her daughter these lessons moving forward. And I appreciated the openness. So
I think that's and I think that's a really good dialogue, and that's a good kind of, we're approaching sort of that going into summer season, graduation season and stuff. And for young people kind of to navigate with some humor, awareness of the potential consequences of kind of everything you say and do, especially in our current social media culture. But then also, of giving grace to people when they make mistakes and expecting the same or hoping for the same in return.
Yeah. And you might not deserve it necessarily in their eyes, but as a person, as we are all human, we all make mistakes. And there's a difference between making a mistake and correcting it and making a mistake over and over again because you refuse to change your ways. So
like the mistake that you make when you listen to the audiobooks too fast and you essentially slaughter the words of the artist, also known as the narrator and also the writer.
So I slowed hers down.
You did? You do love her.
I do love her. I love her so much. I slowed it down.
I said bravo and I didn't even intend to. Full circle.
I love it. I think it was just that I wanted to hear the inflection of her intent where that's the difference, right? So I knew that this was going to be a harder topic. And there's a lot of like language in there that I'm like, we could have just cut so many of that. This is fun AF. Like we could have cut a lot of those out, Stassi Schroeder, my love. But the sentiment behind all of it really stood clear for me. And I needed to slow it down just to hear the inflection in her tone. So that was important to me.
Well, on another day, we'll have to talk about the upcoming show that's going to change my life, which is Real Housewives of Dubai. And we might need to have a whole Middle East reading list or something to accompany it because my whole world is going to change. Can't wait.
I could do two for you. I could do Middle East, and I can also do memoirs of the Real Housewives because I'm also currently reading Garcelle's book, which has been a huge plot situation for the Beverly Hills Housewives who are soon.
They're all mad about it.
Soon to launch their new season. I think they've either wrapped or they're toward the end of wrapping or whatever. Oh no, they wrapped. They're like in a whole other season.
Yeah, I think it's starting in another couple of weeks.
She's kind of lit some fires. So excited to finish reading that. So I have one more on this list of if you like this, you'll like that. We all love the GUNCLE. Steven Rowley. I do this every time.
Rowley.
Steven Rowley. So we know the GUNCLE, the loving uncle gets his niece and nephew for the summer in Palm Springs, and he shows them about what it is to be a washed up actor, so to speak.
Right.
It's got great humor, right? So this book's a little different, but has a good, fish out of water kind of situation. This is called Welcome to the Neighborhood by Lisa Roe. I don't believe I've talked about this one yet.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a woman and her daughter who met a man, and she married him and moved into his home that he and his ex-wife had together. But so she's kind of like stepped into somebody else's life almost. And she's trying to make the best of it for her young daughter, for her husband, and trying to find her own place as an artist in this very hoity-toity white picket fence neighborhood. And she's kind of, because she's not, her husband's ex-wife, she's a different person. They kind of go after her, and there's this whole mean girl mentality. So it's her adapting to a new environment with her home and with kids, and those kids also adapting to the environment. Cool. So I really enjoyed it. I found they're so different, and yet I felt that the themes were similar and the feel of it was similar. It wasn't, even though there were characters with flaws, there was a lot of development for them, and it never felt stagnant. And that's what I appreciate about it. And the characters didn't feel like, oh, this is so boring. Like I really enjoyed it. And this is one that I don't think many people, I've not heard anybody else talk about this among my friends.
Okay. Say the title again.
Welcome to the Neighborhood by Lisa Roe.
Fantastic. Yeah.
This was a NetGalley one that I was like, this sounds cute.
Yeah, the GUNCLE was like, had so much heart, and it just hit so many notes. So anything that is thematically gives you that kind of feel is it sounds very worthwhile. So Margaret, thank you. Too many books, too little time. On that note, thank you. See you next time. Thanks for listening to Olivia's Book Club, the podcast. I'm your host, Olivia Fierro. Our producer is Margaret Stewart. Our editor is Nick Sanchez. You can send us an email with your thoughts or your book recommendations. Olivia's Book Club at azfamily.com is the address. And you can check out Olivia's Book Club on Facebook or find us on Instagram. Hello, Bookstagrammers, at olivias.bookclub. And Margaret is at Overbooked and Overdue. Make sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast and tell your friends. You can find us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Amazon Music.